Move on with the rest of the presentation, and we're going to come back to that at the very end. And if you have any questions, like I said, feel free to unmute yourself. And you don't have to show your video, but I'm going to show mine so you guys can see my crazy hair today. And hopefully you won't hear my dog's stomach growling because he's lying right beside me. So what are the objectives today? So during our time together today, we're going to talk about why we have clutter, some of the barriers to reducing clutter, some of the benefits of reducing clutter, of course, and also we're going to learn a little bit about how to reduce clutter and, of course, how to maintain a clutter balance in our life. Because let's face it, you know, sometimes our lives get full of lots of clutter. You know, it might not just be things in our lives like material things, but it can just be sometimes mental clutter as well, clutter in our inboxes. Just sometimes it can just be a lot going on that becomes tedious for us. So we're going to talk about that today. Okay, so to begin with, there's many reasons why we have clutter, and some of it's through no fault of our own. Sometimes if we have a mailbox, there's going to be lots of junk mail. I know right now I'm getting a lot of political flyers come through. Sometimes I consider junk mail a lot of those bills that I get, of course, coming into our home. Kids will bring home lots of paperwork from school, not to mention art projects and things from their classes that have to go somewhere, and then you feel bad about throwing them out, and so those have to be stored and put, you know, around our homes. Grocery buying means lots of those plastic bags, and you know, we end up putting them in those sleeves to store, and they can turn into a pile of clutter if left unattended. And then once we stop to think about it, a lot of clutter that comes into our home sneaks in without a system or a place to deal with it. And it can be very, very overwhelming. And many times clutter finds its way into our home due to our mental health state. We may feel we need to hold on to something for practical or sentimental reasons. I have some clothes that I think about and I was like, well, you know, I might wear this at some point in my life. And so like once I, for example, lose so many pounds, or I'm going to wear this next season, or I don't want to get rid of this because my grandmother gave it to me. And so there's a lot of times that we hold on to things because of those reasons. Also, many older people who live through periods during, like, you know, for example, the Great Depression, may feel they can't throw anything away because it could be used again, because they remember specific times where things were a necessity. And so they have to utilize things. Other people feel that they have to buy excessively in order to make sure they're always prepared for whatever life could throw at them. If you've ever watched the show Preppers, for example, it talks about, you know, being prepared. And so sometimes people prepare for, you know, what life may bring. And then there's also the emotional attachment to things and the need to keep them, because of things that might be have belonged to a loved one, and so they don't want to get rid of it, and that can be become an issue, or it could be something that you know, well, and that also goes back to like the kids' art projects and something like that. Severe problems managing clutter may become even a more severe mental health issue known as hoarding. At times, we discuss this a lot in the development of this project, that term is thrown around a lot, you know, oh, she's a hoarder, he's a hoarder, or whatever, but that actually is a mental health condition. And if you know of someone that shows those signs, then you should have them consult a mental health professional, because that can be a sign of another mental health issue. So we're going to talk a little bit about why it's important to recognize why you keep things and how you determine what you can keep, how to keep them, and what you should let go of today. So some of the benefits of reducing clutter. So we all think, well, we don't want it in our lives, of course. So many of the reasons of reducing clutter and getting rid of the stuff in our lives are things that would lead to being overwhelmed. But some of the things are things that we don't even think about. So when things are cluttered, it's harder to find things that we need on a moment's notice. We're running out the door, I can't find my keys. I mean, that always seems to be like the big one, right? Like I'm running around, I can't find things. And so that leads to a sense of being overwhelmed, you're not calm, you're very stressed out. And once we have a reduced sense of stress in our lives and we have reduced clutter in our homes, we're filled with a sense of accomplishment. Reducing stress can also improve our relationships. When our homes are not cluttered, we're more likely to have people over for potlucks or family dinners or gatherings. It has a great sense of, or impact rather, on our mental health, resulting in calmness and clearer thinking when things are in their place. And it can make our homes much safer. And that's what we have on the top of the list, because if we have a lot of clutter in our homes, like shoes being left around or boxes or things being left out and not having an actual physical space for them, it can cause physical hazards as well. Some of the other issues that you would run into, not only with the physical safety, as some of the environmental hazards, is because when you have a lot of clutter lying around, Dr. Turner she's in the College of Family Consumer Sciences, where Laura and Susan and I are a part of, but she's a specialist that works in housing, and she spends a lot of her focus on healthy homes, green cleaning. Whenever you have a mold or mildew question, she's the one that we go to. And so when you have a lot of clutter in your homes, it can be a source of asthma, allergy triggers, harbors of molds, and so forth. And so that's why it's very important to get rid of clutter as well. So a lot of times people have barriers to reducing clutter. And when we asked people why they keep clutter, we found that many people felt that they are throwing away memories of loved ones, while others cited depression or mental health issues that held them back from reducing clutter. Still others were just not equipped with the organizational skills necessary for reducing clutter. Also, if the clutter problem had become really bad, finding a starting point for reducing clutter was overwhelming. Also, auto shipments of products and problems with time management was a hindrance to reducing clutter. So in our research, this became sort of the key points, the key barriers to reducing clutter. And so this might be something that you guys are dealing with. So where do I start? It can be extremely overwhelming. I don't have a place for all of these things to go. The things that we mentioned earlier, these are memories. I don't want to throw these things away. You know, this belonged to my grandmother. I just don't feel like doing it, because you might be dealing with a sense of depression. Sometimes people are just disorganized in their lives in general, and they don't know how to deal with it. They don't know where to put it. And they might be disorganized outside of their home life, you know, in their work life, in their personal lives, in other instances. And so even their homes are going to be so disorganized that they're not going to be able to deal with that as well. The auto shipment stuff is a very interesting aspect of reducing clutter and the barriers to reducing clutter. One person that we discussed as we were developing this curriculum has so many auto shipments coming in that they didn't realize all the packages that were coming in, what was coming in each day and each time. It was like Christmas every day. And so that was an interesting aspect to reducing clutter in the home. And then time management being a big issue, is putting things off and letting things pile up became a big issue for many people. So in developing the FIND method, we cited that there were 5 aspects to finding, to reducing clutter, I guess would be the best thing to say. So just like with many other things in life, there are many different methods to decluttering. And of course, the popular, Marie Kondo method, the KonMari method, was one that we found extremely interesting. And there's been many others. But that's what led us to want to have a university research-led team get together and come up with our own. But we wanted to come up with this method by focusing on important necessities in your dwelling. And we thought about, well, what could you find if you decluttered your home? Well, we discovered that you could find happiness, you could find money, you could find lost items, all while improving your mental health and well-being, and also you could find time. And so we're going to go through each of these aspects today. And of course, the key to the FIND method is figuring out what works best for you, what your manageable level of clutter is, and also we're going to discuss what motivates you, because it's the motivating factor of what's going to motivate you to reduce your clutter that's going to help you maintain that clutter balance. So how do we find money? I mean, we all need to find money. I'm still looking for the money tree out in the yard, and I haven't found it yet. And so that's unfortunately not part of the FIND method. But you're going to find money from canceling auto shipments. You're also going to find money from not buying what you already have, or by selling or donating things. And so my favorite example in this is by finding shopping, and we're going to talk about this when we talk about the FIND method, but I talk about this in all the, so my focus, and I'm sorry, I'm very ADD, so I talk around in circles, but my favorite thing that I like to talk about in the food classes that I teach, because I focus on nutrition and food and chronic disease prevention as part of my aspects of family consumer sciences, is shop your pantry first when you're cooking or something. And many people will find, no pun intended, that they have, for example, 5 things of cinnamon, and they're going out to bake, and they go to the grocery and they have their grocery list, and they're like, oh, I'm going to bake this cake or whatever recipe. Oh, I need cinnamon for it. And they grab, and now they have 6 things of cinnamon, and they get home, they open their cupboard, and they're like, oh man, I already had cinnamon. And then as they're organizing and they're looking for some other spice, they're like, oh, there's more cinnamon. I just found some more. And that's how we end up having so much stuff. And it's actually wasted money. So we're going to talk about finding money by shopping locally. Also finding money by selling and donating. All of those clothes that you think about, well, I'm going to wear that next season. Are you really? I mean, let's start being honest with yourself. Susan did some great research. Thank you, Susan, on many of the apps. And we're going to talk a little bit about technology, and I'll let her chime in on that today. And I use one of them a lot to sell things that I really am not going to wear next season, called Poshmark. And there's Mercari, and there's so many other ones. And you can sell things on, and you can make, it's not a lot of money that you make, but some people do make a lot of money, and how you can sell things that you might not make. Or like I said, donating things. I was wrapped around the building at Goodwill just the other day, donating things that I'm not going to use, and then that you can get some tax incentives for those. So finding buried treasure by uncovering items that you don't remember that you had through reorganization. How many times have we gone through our closets, or we've gone through drawers, and we're like, wow, I forgot about that. I didn't realize I had that. So finding lost items just because you reorganized them, because it's sort of the out of sight, out of mind mentality. And so once you've reorganized things, you can find things. It's just like finding that money in the dryer, in the pocket of your pants that you forgot about, and you feel like you're rich again. And so finding lost items, that's always like the best feeling ever. So finding more time for all of life's activities when everything is organized. When you're having to spend time, for example, finding your keys because you've lost them because things are disorganized, or it took you a long time to find, for example, that help certificate you needed for something. I'm a competitive horseback rider, and I always have to have a certain thing, a Coggins and a help certificate when I take my horse someplace. And if I don't know where that is, and I have to spend, 2 hours going and locating that document before I go out to the barn to go to a horse show or something, that's time that I could have spent riding or doing something else, for example. But if I have all of my documents always in order, then that's time saved. For example, finding health and well-being in yourself and your relationships by getting organized, reducing stress of a cluttered home, and reducing health risks related to asthma and allergy triggers and dust and mold, and also those falling and tripping hazards if we have a lot of clutter lying around. And also finding happiness and increased energy and overall well-being through organization. And so having things organized and tidy and nice looking, not only does it make for a pleasant looking environment, aesthetically pleasing, but it is going to be more welcoming when you want to have friends and family over and you don't feel like you have to just throw everything in a closet and slam the door shut and make it appear to be nice, but then you have that kind of hanging over your head, like, oh, now I've got to open that dreaded closet or that dreaded bedroom where you've shoved everything in once your guests leave. Get my slide to move. So, and another handout that we, did I skip a slide? No, I didn't. Okay. Another handout that we provided you. So we provided you one with the find method. What are you finding? We also provided you with the find method tools. So we also produced 5 tools that you could use with the find method. We do not teach you a creative fold, although I do use that creative fold made popular by you-know-who. But we thought these would be great tools in order to get organized and to declutter. And so our 5, as with so many other things, not only can you use these, but like I mentioned earlier, the use of technology can be integrated into these. So I want you to keep that in mind. So like the apps that we've talked about are using, chip locators on your car keys. Keep those in mind as well. But these are the 5 basic components of the find method to reduce clutter in your home. The first one, you've heard these 3 words a lot: reduce, recycle, reuse. You've heard them in kids' schools before, and it's been around a lot. And so I want you to think outside of the box when we talk about reduce, recycle, and reuse as it relates to the find method. And so when we think about reduce, we want to reduce consumer consumption and consumer purchasing. And so we mean purchase less and practice purchasing less. Reduce those auto shipments, reduce the number of cinnamons that you buy. Reduce what you would normally buy by shopping local. And so those 2 things sort of are going to go together, and you'll see what I mean when I go to the next one. Recycle. So when I talk about recycling in this sense, we talk about recycling through food, through composting is a great way, through using those, remember those plastic grocery bags that I discussed? I'll never forget, my mom always used those as grocery liners. I use them as, instead of buying the little dog bags that you use to pick up after your dog, I use those instead. So I'm recycling. And then also reusing items. For example, reusing shoe boxes as gift boxes, wrapping them and making them reusable gift boxes is a great way to reuse an item. Or using the back of scrap sheets of paper or the back of the envelopes of the junk mail that you're getting instead of buying cutesy note papers. If you need to make a grocery list, use the back of that instead of buying things specifically for those purposes. And there's many other ways that you can reduce, recycle, and reuse. Those are just a few tips that we came up with. So shopping local. is shopping your own home first. So shopping your kitchen first, shopping your pantry first, shopping your closet first. Often we don't know what we own because things are hidden away or stashed. Enterprise is one person's junk is another person's treasure. I grew up in an era of garage sales, and I know Susan and Laura did as well. And so now we have so many of those applications, like I mentioned earlier, that makes it a breeze to turn everything from household items to clothing into green cash by selling what you don't use to someone who could use it. So I'm sitting here talking about making money and saving money and reduce, recycle, and reuse, and you're probably seeing number 4 and thinking, move. She wants us to move? What's she talking about? So do a mock move. So I'm not telling you to pack up and move to another city, but I have moved several times, like legitly moved. And for those of you that have moved, now I have friends that have never moved before in their lives, and you can tell they've never moved because their houses look very lived in, meaning they've got a lot of stuff. But for those of you that have moved, you can probably relate to this comment that when you move, you realize what you don't need. You end up giving a lot of stuff away or donating a lot of stuff or getting rid of a lot of stuff because you have to pack it up in boxes and then you end up labeling it. And so if you do a mock move, you can pack up things and then you can realize what you don't need, get rid of it, and then unpack and then realize what you can live with. You also, the stuff that you realize you don't need at that time that stays in boxes, if it stays in a box after a certain amount of time, then you perhaps don't need it. And you can potentially give it away. Now, I was discussing this point actually recently with someone, and they were like, well, Barbara, are you going to get rid of all the stuff in boxes? Now I have all my stuff in boxes, extremely labeled, very organized. Obviously, that's why I'm on this project. And I said, no, it's just because I'm in a very small apartment right now. And I know at some point when I'm in a larger house, I will use, it's just I actually do not have the space to unpack it right now. But there has been lots of stuff that I have gotten rid of. The last point I want to share with you on our methods is donate. And so this is another way, of course, to make money as well. So gift to one is also a way, is intrinsically and extrinsically rewarding. And so this is a very rewarding portion of the tools. Gift to others who need what you might not longer need. You'll feel good for knowing that you've helped others, and you might get a tax incentive for it. So that's where the money portion comes into play. So as we continue to talk about how to reduce clutter, we want to talk about how everyone has a different idea of how much clutter is manageable. So when we were developing this, my level of clutter that I think is okay, and Susan's, for example, and Laura's and Dr. Turner's and Dr. Bale's, all completely different. What helps you keep motivated to declutter your home is something that we have to consider. What motivates you to reduce that clutter, and finding that clutter reduction method that works for you. Is it perhaps your primary goal to stay safer and healthier? Is it to reduce allergy triggers perhaps? Is it to redecorate your home? Is that your motivation? Is it to save money, to make money? Is it to do good for others or for the environment? Is it to cut down on unnecessary buying? So we're going to talk about maintaining a clutter balance in our next slide and highlight some specific ways to reduce clutter to a manageable level. So maintaining a clutter balance is sort of like maintaining weight. So in our weight loss classes that we teach, we give you all the tools, like we just talked about the tools to reducing clutter, and people can lose the weight with the right tools, but it's always keeping the weight off. Like, oh, you know, the house looks pretty now. I've gotten into that dress size by losing weight, but now how do we maintain it? And that's always the challenge. So there are several things that you can do to ensure that your clutter-free home stays clutter-free. So tackling things in manageable projects and timelines is paramount. Don't set the goal of having the entire house decluttered in a day. That's not going to happen. You're not going to be able to get it done all at once. Instead, just take one room at a time, or do it in other ways. For example, you could do the one thing in, one thing out, which is something that I try to practice. So if I buy a new pair of shoes, I get rid of a new pair of shoes. You could do, another example would be 5 things to put away. Make it a game. You know, okay, well, I'm going to do 5 things to put away right now. And you could do a 5-minute timer method. Like, in 5 minutes, how much can I accomplish? Or you could break it down and say, I'm going to work 20 minutes and break 20 minutes. And you could do that for a set period of time. For example, an hour, right? And then that would give you 40 minutes worth of work. Also, using technology would be another great way to maintain a clutter balance. There's all those robotic vacuum cleaners now that help at least cut down on dirt and dust. Tags that help you find missing items, everything from lost keys to lost dogs, which are fabulous. And of course the apps, like I said, that help you sell things that you no longer use can help you maintain the clutter balance in your home. So we also provided you with an action plan, which are ways that you will help find your way down a path to a less cluttered life or living. And so I'm going to stop sharing this screen and I'm going to share with you the action plan. And you don't have to fill it out with me now, but what I want to do is I'm going to go over it with you. And then we're going to wrap the rest of this session up. And then I'm going to take any questions that you might have. And so let me do this. Share. Okay. Can everybody see the action plan?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right, perfect. All right, so, and this should be, I sent it to you as a PDF, so it should be fillable for you, so you can just do it right there on your computer. We want to thank Susan Moore for creating this for us. So the beginning of it is just an example. So your goal is, for example, I'm going to clean out my bedroom closet by July 1st. You're going to start with your steps that you have a starting date that you're going to start for, and this is totally like an example that you're going to start on June 17th. I'll take all the clothes and shoes out of my closet and try them on to see what fits. I'll divide the clothes and shoes into 3 stacks, donate, throw away, and keep. Anything that is torn or stained and not usable will be thrown away. Anything that does not fit well will be donated. Anything that I do not like will also be donated. Step 4, I will hang up all the clothes, all of the keep items back in my closet with the hanger turned the opposite direction. So many of you probably have already either seen this technique done before. This is a pretty old technique I've read about. And then as I wear the clothes, I will turn the hangers around. So this shows you that you're actually using these clothes or wearing these clothes. Anything that has not been worn in a year, July of 2021, will be donated. Because if you haven't worn it in a year, are you likely to wear it? Probably not. I will take the items that are in bad shape directly to the trash. I will take the donated items to Goodwill on June 20th. Now, it doesn't have to be Goodwill, as you'll see in your fillable action plan. It could be any of those places that you choose. Kidney Foundation, wherever. So your goal, I will clean whatever you choose to clean, and then you're going to set a date. You're going to set a date when you'll start. And then your next step will go as follows. And then, for example, this is, I will take all the clothes and shoes out of my closet and try them on to see what fits. So you're going to come up with your own and you will fill it in as such. So I wanted to share this with you guys so you can kind of have an outline to use this kind of as a guide or a goal. And I thought that was a great tool also that she developed to share with us. Cool. I was just checking the chat box. Thanks, Susan. Now let me go back to my PowerPoint here and start sharing the screen again. Oops. Scoop. Zoom, share screen. Share. Let me go back to the very end where we were. Okay. Got a slide. All right, so in summary, and then we do have a poll that I want you to participate in right after this slide, and then we're going to take questions. It's important that we all realize that sustaining change in our lifestyle, whether we're talking about clutter or eating healthy, comes only through behavior changes. And by making that behavior change as manageable as possible, because we are already doing things that are overwhelming and we don't want to be overwhelmed any more than we already are. If any type of change is overwhelming for us, we're not going to follow through with it and not find the results that we want. We also have to consider our relationships when we attempt any type of behavior change and make it work within family who are made up of different styles. So what works for one family is not going to work for another. There's no one size fits all, and we must take into account that everyone in our family will respond differently to this change that we're attempting. Technology can be a great tool for many things and may be helpful in creating lists that all the family can have access to, as well as reminders that it's time to purge business papers or make a trip to the local clothing bank as well. The end result of our efforts will be very satisfying, but we shouldn't get discouraged if we aren't able to accomplish all of our goals within a day or two. The road to a decluttered life, rather, can be extremely challenging. So the process can be challenging, but the results are going to be extremely rewarding. So the clutter personalities that you guys looked at, I just want you to realize that it's okay to be different and have different tolerance levels. And on the team that we created, there were varying tolerance levels, and we all kind of joked about that as we created this program. And I want you to embrace the personality that you might have. Start making changes where you are right now and realize that there's no right or wrong way. And so each step that you take is an accomplishment. And so starting now, Susan is going to pop up a poll. It's 3 short questions, and it's completely anonymous. And all we're able to do, we're not able to see who answers, we're only able to see the answers. We just wanted to see kind of what you guys gathered from this.
Can everyone see the poll?
Yes.
I can.
Good. All right, we're going to give y'all just a few minutes, and if y'all don't mind, just answer. I think there's only 3 questions, so we'll give you about 5 minutes to, or less, depending on how quickly we get them.
Yeah, and if you called in, you won't be able to see it, obviously, but if you're on your computer, you should be able to. My dog's stomach is still growling. Sorry about that.
Okay, we've got 3 of 5 people have answered, and there may be that's the only ones who are able to. Does anyone
Yeah.
else who
I think
needs?
that's it.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll go ahead and end the
Okay, end the
polling.
polling. All right, perfect. Thank you. Awesome. Super. So here are our results. I'm going to share.
I shared them.
You did? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right. So you guys can take a look at that. Looks like everybody was in the same boat on their scores. You guys can see what the barriers are. Cool. Awesome.
So
And
the good news from the poll is it looks like everyone knows where to start.
exactly. Exactly. Those are all great things. Selling stuff. I know everybody's on the same page. That's exactly right. Yeah.
Y'all had the same score I did too.
Yeah. I need to take the quiz. I haven't taken it since we started it. So I was bad. I haven't taken the quiz in a while. I guess I should take it really quickly. Huh? Yeah. But yeah, those are all fabulous methods to start. And those are all extremely, all the barriers are all ones that are extremely common. And easy to overcome with utilizing those methods. So good job, guys. All right, so you want to stop sharing the poll, please? Or I guess I can. All right. So if anyone has any, I want to thank everyone so much for participating today. I wanted to keep it under an hour, which we did a phenomenal job. Does anyone have any questions? If you do, feel free to unmute yourself at this time, or if you want to contact us privately, you can. But we want to thank Dr. Pamela Turner, Dr. Diane Bales, and of course I want to thank Laura Smith and Susan Moore again for helping me out on this project. My email address and office number is there if you do have any further questions following this presentation, or if you want more information, we'll be happy to help you out. And thank you again for your participation, and we will